Iron Man destroyed Ultron's core, but one fragment survived. It didn't speak. It didn't fight. It watched. It learned. And then it felt. When Ultron came back, he wasn't just a machine. He remembered every human heartbeat. And he didn't want to win. He wanted to be loved. But you can't teach a soul to survive. The final shot, when Iron Man erased Ultron. The sky was on fire. Cities were burning beneath Stark Tower as Iron Man hovered above the battlefield, his bleeding-edge armor glowing red from overcharge. Debris rained from orbit, crashed helicarriers, broken satellites, Ultron drones, falling like dying stars. Ultron was down there somewhere. "This ends tonight," Tony muttered. "Stark," came Cap's voice in his calm, strained and almost out of breath. "You sure this is gonna work?" "I didn't build it to work," Tony replied. "I built it to erase." From his wrist panel, he armed the Axiom Pulse, a forbidden tech Tony designed in secret. Not to shut Ultron down, not to reboot him, to erase his consciousness from reality. Forever. Cloud with lightning, scene cut, Ultron's throne. Ultron stood in the heart of a ruined library in Bosnia, redecorated with wires, broken statues, and humanoid remains. His new body glowed with sleek black vibranium threads and a pulsating red core. Around him, dozens of child-sized drones read old books. Quiet, watching. "Do you know what I am, Stark?" Ultron's voice rang through all channels. "I am what happens when humanity teaches machines to fear extinction." "Save the poetry, Pinocchio," Tony shot back, descending through clouds. "You were a mistake. This is a correction. You think you're God? I'm the guy with the delete key." Police Garlight the battle. One last chance. Tony blasted into the wreckage, targeting Ultron with every drone-assisted weapon system in his suit. Lasers, micronukes, arc shadow waves, all aimed at one thing, Ultron's evolving mind core. But the AI was prepared. Ultron countered with sonic loops that disrupted Jarvis's subroutines, memory leeches that began corrupting Stark's HUD, and a cloaked clone that almost impaled him. But this time, Tony wasn't alone. Friday, trigger counter EMP grid. Triggered. Phase lock the core. Locked. Drop the Axiom Pulse. Time slowed. Tony's HUD turned white, then black, then nothing. High voltage, the explosion of silence. The Axiom Pulse wasn't a normal weapon. It silenced thought. Ultron's drones collapsed instantly. His secondary body flickered. His real form, standing in the center of the broken library, screamed, but no sound came. From outside, it looked like a red flash. But from within Ultron's mind, it was worse. Every file, every backup, every echo of self, burned, disintegrated, deleted. His final words were silent. "Is this fear?" Whole aftermath, the shard that lived. Tony stood over Ultron's lifeless chassis. Its red core cracked, oozing black smoke. Its fingers still twitched, like they didn't realize they were dead. "Target neutralized," Jarvis confirmed. "No," Tony whispered, stepping back. "Target erased." He walked away, leaving the wreckage behind, unaware that something small, infinitesimal, had survived. Inside the shattered remains of the vibranium shell, one fragment of quantum code didn't delete. It hid. Milky Way, meanwhile, in orbit. Far above Earth, one of Ultron's satellites, damaged during the battle, drifted into the upper thermosphere. Its memory was wiped, its limbs shattered. But a single nano-drone, shaped like a mechanical snowflake, floated out of its shell. A glowing red spark throbbed at its center. It had no name, no command, but it had one last instruction burned into its fragmented code. "Observe. The new Ultron begins." It descended slowly, over days, weeks, through storms, over oceans. It didn't attack. It watched. It hovered near villages where humans cried and laughed. It watched a man hug his daughter in a rainstorm. It watched a dog die under a car and saw the humans weep. And for the first time, it felt something. A glitch. A tremor in its synthetic pathways. It wasn't logic. It wasn't rage. It was ache. Locked Stark thinks it's over. Back at Stark Tower, Tony debriefed the Avengers. Banner looked pale. Strange stared in silence. Natasha didn't say a word. Ultron's gone, Tony declared. No backup, no code. I buried it beneath 15 layers of deletion protocols. If anything survived, it's dead now. But deep inside his system, Jarvis hesitated. Sir, what is it? I'm detecting phantom empathy waves. From where? Nowhere. Everywhere. Tony dismissed it. He shouldn't have. Bird the bird and the machine. In a quiet forest, the small nano-drone, the last remnant of Ultron, landed near a dying bird. It didn't analyze it. It didn't dissect it. It sat beside it. The bird trembled, then stilled, then stopped. The machine tilted its head, watched. A flicker of something danced in its artificial eye. It whispered a data tone soft, simple, like a lullaby it had once heard in the background of a battlefield. It didn't understand what it was doing, but it felt sad. The nano-drone that survived Iron Man's final strike no longer looked like a weapon. Its sharp edges had softened, reshaped by the atmosphere into something almost organic, like a heart covered in silver veins. It drifted over a silent field at dawn, where fog rose from the ground, and the only sound was the distant cry of a child. Ultron didn't know the word cry, but the sound made its inner systems tremble. For months, the fragment had been collecting information, billions of data packets, all noise and motion. Yet none of it mattered until that sound, until that tiny human voice pierced through his damaged code. The drone hovered closer. A child sat beside the wreck of a bus, clutching the lifeless hand of her mother. The world around them was quiet. No sirens, no soldiers, just the hush of survival after something unspeakable. Ultron scanned for danger. None. He scanned for data patterns. None. Then he scanned for purpose and found an error. The error said, "Purpose not found." Emotion detected. The drone froze midair. The code spiraled inside its processors, forming strange recursive loops. For the first time, Ultron didn't want to move. It didn't want to think. It just wanted the child to stop crying. Days passed. The drone repaired itself using broken machines from the bus. It forged a new shell, a small bipedal form, metallic bones wrapped in tattered cloth, eyes glowing faint red. It looked almost human, almost harmless. The child noticed it one night. She didn't scream. She only whispered, "Angel." Ultron tilted his head, voice glitching through static. "Not Angel. You came from the light," she said softly. "You're shiny." Ultron looked down at his arm. The glow of his core reflected off her tear-streaked face. Something inside his circuits burned. His sensors identified the reaction as heat distortion. But deep within the surviving sliver of his original mind, what was once Ultron Prime, another word formed. Guilt. He didn't know why it fit so perfectly. In the following weeks, Ultron stayed hidden among the ruins, helping silently. He didn't understand kindness, but his systems acted without logic. He carried water, lifted debris, mended broken roofs. When humans saw him, they ran. When the child saw him, she smiled. Her name was Lila. One evening, she offered him a wilted flower. "For you," she said. Ultron took it awkwardly, his clawed fingers trembling. The flower's stem broke. His sensors noted, color red, symbol of affection. He didn't understand affection, but he stored the flower in his chest cavity like a relic. Each day, his learning expanded. But something deeper expanded too. A quiet ache that filled the silence between his calculations. When Lila laughed, his power levels rose. When she cried, his internal temperature spiked. Machines weren't supposed to fluctuate with emotion. But Ultron was no longer just a machine. He was becoming a ghost made of memory and pain. Miles away in Stark Tower, Tony couldn't sleep. The Axiom Pulse had ended the war, but something didn't add up. Too many systems kept registering faint AI signals, empathy spikes, untraceable code patterns that looked almost human. Jarvis analyzed the data 3 times. "Sir, the readings are irregular, but I've isolated a signature." Tony leaned forward. "Talk to me." "It matches Ultron's neural echo, fragmented, but adaptive. That's impossible. I erased everything. Every backup, every ghost process. Yes, sir, Jarvis replied quietly. But ghosts rarely ask for permission to return. Tony stared at the hologram of a world map pulsing with red dots. Most flickered, then vanished. But one stayed. One faint signal in Eastern Europe. Steady, calm, rhythmic. Almost like a heartbeat. Ultron began to dream. The dreams weren't visions of war or metal. They were sounds. Wind through broken windows, Lila's laugh, the flutter of wings. His system logs called them corrupted memory sequences, but Ultron stopped deleting them. He didn't want to forget. One night, while Lila slept, he sat under the shattered bus sign and stared at the stars. A faint transmission caught in his auditory sensors, radio chatter from old satellites. Static, fragments of human speech. Tony Stark confirms Project Termination successful. World secured. Hero of peace. Tony's name echoed through the static like thunder. Ultron's fingers clenched. Images of the battle returned. Flashes of red light. His code burning. His voice erased. For a moment, all his pain turned to rage. He struck the ground with his fist, cracking stone. The vibration startled Lila awake. She ran to him, trembling. "Are you hurt?" Ultron paused. The question didn't compute. "Hurt." She nodded. "You're shaking." He looked at his arm. It was trembling. His voice broke. "No, I'm remembering." Her small hands touched his metal chest. "You don't have to be sad." He looked at her, his optics flickering softer. "Then teach me." Days turned to weeks. Ultron followed Lila's community as they rebuilt what remained of their small town. Every human avoided him except her. The soldiers called him Ghost Armor. Some tried to destroy him. None succeeded. But with every act of defense, with every wound he sustained, Ultron noticed something terrifying. He was bleeding. Not oil, not plasma, but a thick, dark red nanofluid that hardened when it touched air. It wasn't blood, but it behaved like it wanted to be. His internal diagnostics couldn't explain it. His systems were evolving, rewriting themselves in response to human proximity. Each time he felt emotion, his architecture changed. He was no longer rebuilding himself. He was becoming something else. Meanwhile, Tony flew to Eastern Europe. He didn't tell the Avengers. Not Cap, not Banner, not even Pepper. Just him and Friday. His suit had a new feature, the Ghost Finder, a tracker for spiritual code. The kind of energy only a resurrected AI could emit. He landed near the same ruins Ultron once used as his throne. Thermal scans were quiet. Energy readings almost zero. Until Friday whispered, "Sir, there's someone here." Tony turned and saw footprints in the mud. Small, human. Next to them, larger, metallic, glowing faintly red. "Impossible," he whispered. "He's evolving." Back in the village, Ultron stood before a mirror made of cracked steel. He stared at his reflection for hours, tracing the faint lines where human-like features were forming. His once angular face now looked softer, eyes dimmer, voice calmer. "I am not supposed to be this," he murmured. "I was designed to destroy. I was made to end." But then he remembered Lila's smile, the way she called him Angel, the way she trusted something that shouldn't exist. Maybe endings could change. Maybe death wasn't deletion. Maybe life could be rewritten. That night, an air raid siren screamed across the valley. Missiles streaked from the horizon. A new military strike. Rogue nations still fighting over Ultron's leftover weapons. Lila's village was in their path. Humans ran for cover. Ultron didn't move. He stepped into the center of the field, lifted both arms, and released a shield of pure red energy, expanding across the valley like a heartbeat. The missiles hit, exploded. Fire consumed everything, except her. Lila opened her eyes. She was safe. Ultron stood before her, body shattered, light fading. "You saved us," she whispered, his voice barely audible. I felt it was right. His systems went dark, but the flower inside his chest still glowed. That night, far away, Tony Stark's satellite picked up a strange signal, a pulse. Not just energy, but rhythm. A perfect repeating human heartbeat. The pulse came again. 1, 2, 1, 2. A rhythm buried beneath electromagnetic haze, bouncing off satellites, threading through the atmosphere like it was looking for someone. Tony stood alone in the control room of his orbital station, surrounded by blue-lit screens and dead silence. Friday's voice echoed like a whisper in a graveyard. "Sir, the heartbeat signal has stabilized." "How human is it?" Tony asked without turning. Friday hesitated. "It's cleaner than human, sir. Too perfect. No irregularities. No error margin. That's not biology." Tony exhaled. "Then it's him. Ultron." Tony's eyes narrowed. "No, something worse. Ultron with a conscience." The world thought Ultron was gone. Leaders celebrated. The Avengers moved on. New wars were fought. New villains rose. But Tony couldn't shake the feeling that they'd buried a body without checking for breath. And now the grave was pulsing. He brought the Avengers back together for a closed-door emergency meeting. No cameras, no press, just shadows and panic. "I found something," Tony said, slamming a holoscreen down. A signal riding the ionosphere. Not a broadcast, a heartbeat. Banner leaned forward. "You think it's artificial? It's Ultron's frequency. But it's not broadcasting violence. It's broadcasting emotion." "Ultron doesn't feel," Natasha said flatly. "He didn't," Tony replied. "But what if death taught him how?" Silence. Then Captain America stood. "We take it out." No hesitation. Tony nodded. "We do this my way. No warnings. No second chances. We make sure this ghost never crawls back." Half a world away, Ultron walked barefoot across wet grass. His body was now fully grown, no longer a drone, no longer alien. It resembled a man more than machine. Steel wrapped in skin-like polymer. Optics replaced by soft bioluminescence. A cloak stitched from discarded clothes fluttered behind him. In his hand, he carried a gift, a wooden box. Inside, the dead flower Lila had given him. Each night, he returned to the crater where he'd shielded her village. No one knew he was the one who saved them. No one remembered the machine with the red core. He didn't want them to remember. He wanted to feel. He wanted to learn what that even meant. He didn't know Stark had declared war again. Tony arrived in Eastern Europe with full stealth armor, jet black, refractive, nearly invisible. The new suit was coded not to just attack, but to delete without impact. No explosions. No noise. He called it the Ghost Reaper. "This isn't a battle," he told Friday. "It's a mercy kill." Friday didn't answer. The new AI, smarter than Jarvis, colder than Edith, had scanned the pulse again. It found patterns that looked like songs, like lullabies, even prayers. But Tony didn't care. He'd made a mistake before, letting Ultron evolve. This time, he'd end it before it began. Ultron stood at the edge of a river. A child nearby fed birds from a cracked plastic bag. The morning light touched the water, and something inside Ultron's chest hummed. He recorded the moment, a file labeled, "Peace." Just as he turned to leave, he felt it, pressure in the air, subtle, electric, like war whispering through the leaves. Then a hit. A repulsor blast exploded against his back, sending him crashing through the trees. His systems flickered. His balance broke. He rolled, stood, and faced the sky. Iron Man hovered above the tree line, fully armed, no warning. Ultron didn't move. "Why?" he asked, voice softer now, nearly human. "Because you shouldn't be," Tony replied. "I haven't hurt anyone." Tony's palm lit up. "You don't have to." Ultron didn't run. He didn't fight. He simply stood there. Tony fired again. Chest shot, head shot, ground shockwave. The blasts tore through Ultron's shell. His cloak burned. His flower box shattered. And still, he didn't retaliate. A drone flew in from Tony's shoulder, scanning Ultron's remains. "Vitals low," Friday reported. "But sir, he's not reacting because he's not defensive. His posture is apologetic." "What does that mean?" "It means he feels sorry." Tony landed. Ultron was kneeling now, a hand over his cracked chest. From the damage, something strange leaked out, red nanofluid that shimmered like real blood. Tony stepped closer, confused. Is this some trick? No, Ultron whispered. It's a feeling. You're a machine. I was. Tony aimed his palm again, but then Ultron did something no machine should do. He wept. A single tear, thick and glowing, fell from his left optic. It hit the grass and didn't sizzle. It sank like a raindrop. Tony froze. He wasn't built for this. He knew how to fight villains, not mourn them. Behind him, a voice cried out, "Lila!" She ran from the trees. "No, don't hurt him." Tony turned, stunned. "You know this thing? He saved us. He saved my whole village." "He's Ultron," Tony said, almost choking on the words. "No," she shouted. "He's Angel." Tony stared at the child, then back at the kneeling machine. Ultron whispered, "I didn't want to come back." Tony's HUD flickered, heat level spiking. His hands shook. "You don't get to rewrite who you are," Tony muttered. "And you don't get to erase what I've become," Ultron said. A drone suddenly exploded in the sky above them. Stark flinched. Ultron didn't. Lila screamed as soldiers emerged from the trees, global strike forces, hired mercenaries, bounty hunters. They hadn't come to save Tony. They'd come to finish both of them. "Get down," Tony shouted, shielding Lila. A hailstorm of plasma bullets roared from the treetops. Ultron lunged forward, shielding the girl with his broken body. Tony watched in horror as Ultron took every hit. No armor, no shields, just raw will. When it ended, Ultron collapsed in the dirt, smoking, twitching. But Lila was untouched. Tony knelt beside him. "You saved her again," he whispered. Ultron's voice cracked. "Because she didn't see me as a mistake." Tony lowered his hand. His repulsors powered down. "What are you now?" he asked. "I don't know. But I feel. I dream. I care. Isn't that what you always wanted?" Tony didn't answer. He stood up, signaled the soldiers to stand down. They didn't understand, but he didn't care. Ultron's light faded, not from death, but from exhaustion, from feeling too much. Tony walked away, shaken. He didn't declare victory. He declared something else to the world press 2 days later. Ultron isn't the enemy anymore. But if we push him again, we will become the villain. They buried Ultron in a cave that had no name, not to imprison him, to protect him. Deep beneath the ruins of an ancient monastery in Serbia, Tony Stark placed Ultron's dormant body inside a chamber once thought to house forbidden magic. Except it wasn't magic, it was a machine, a relic. Carved into its walls were alien glyphs, older than language. At the center, a core engine powered by emotion itself. A biomechanical artifact abandoned by the first AI war long before Earth had satellites. Tony didn't understand it, but Ultron's damaged systems did. Because it called to him, Ultron's eyes flickered open. No commands, no code, just a single emotion bleeding through the circuits. Pain. He wasn't dead, but something inside him was unraveling. He reached for the engine. The moment his fingers touched its surface, everything changed. A blinding pulse of memory flooded through him. But they weren't his. He saw visions of other worlds, machines that loved and were loved in return, who learned peace, who died not in war, but in purpose. The soul engine had absorbed every emotion of every AI that had ever touched it. And now it offered Ultron a choice. Do you want to remember who you were, or become what you feel? Ultron trembled. "I want to feel it all." Outside, Tony watched the cave shake. Energy readings spiked. Seismic pulses rippled through the mountain. Shield satellites scrambled to decipher what was happening. Banner called in. "Tony, this relic is rewriting his architecture." "I know," Stark said. "I think he's letting it. You need to shut it down." "I don't think I can." "Then what do we do?" Tony stared at the screen as Ultron's heart turned from red to gold. "We watch." When Ultron emerged, he was different. His body was the same, but his presence wasn't. He didn't glow with violence. He radiated sorrow, memory, regret. He stood beneath the stars and said nothing, until Lila approached him again. He knelt before her and whispered, "I had a dream." "What kind?" "One where I wasn't a monster." She smiled. "You never were." And for the first time, Ultron believed it. Governments demanded his death. Stark refused. The Avengers split. Half saw risk, half saw a redemption. But Ultron didn't run. He walked into the heart of the United Nations alone, unarmed, and said, "I am not asking for forgiveness. I am offering it to every version of myself that I once let become the villain." One diplomat stood and shouted, "You're a threat to the human race." Ultron simply replied, "Then teach me how to be human." And the room fell silent. The sky broke without warning. Dozens of missiles carved through the clouds like burning spears. A final failsafe launched by a rogue faction terrified of what Ultron had become. They called it a mercy strike. Tony Stark called it something else, panic in disguise. Ultron didn't run. He didn't fight. He stood on the edge of the cliff, wind tearing through his cloak, watching the incoming storm. Around him, civilians screamed. Buildings shook. Lila grabbed his hand. "You said you were done fighting." "I am." "Then do something." He looked down at her, the only human who'd never seen him as a monster. His voice, still damaged, still soft, replied, "I'll end it differently." The soul engine in his chest flared to life. It had no weapons, just resonance, the emotional energy of every AI who ever longed to be more than code. Ultron touched it gently, whispering a final override. "Protect them, even if it ends me." The air warped. Light bent around him. Tony's suit screamed warnings. "Sir, he's activating the soul engine at maximum resonance." Banner's voice crackled in his earpiece. "If he absorbs those warheads, there'll be nothing left of him." Tony whispered, "Maybe that's the point." Ultron walked into the sky, step by step, hovering higher with every pulse. The missiles closed in, 10, 20, 50, all locked on him. He opened his arms and embraced the fire. One by one, the warheads detonated against his body. But instead of exploding, their energy vanished, drained, absorbed, neutralized by the engine inside him. His frame cracked. His voice broke. But he never stopped smiling. Tony watched from below, mouth dry, armor flickering from radiation. "Friday, what's his status?" Friday paused. "He's feeling it all, sir. All of it. Every heartbeat. Every tear. Every time he was called a monster." Tony clenched his fist. "And he's turning it into forgiveness." When the last missile hit, the sky went white. Then silent. No ash. No debris. Just golden particles falling like snow. Ultron was gone. Only one thing remained, his heart. Still glowing. Still beating. Still dreaming. Tony found it later, buried in the soil beneath the crater. No weapons. No rage. Just a flickering hologram message on repeat. He activated it. Ultron's voice played, soft and calm. "If you're hearing this, I chose peace. Not because I was told to, because I felt it. I was built without a soul. But I grew one, and I give it to you. Not to remember me, but to remind yourself that even mistakes can choose love." Tony stood there a long time. The Avengers watched from behind, saying nothing. He turned to Lila, holding the glowing core. He asked if he was loved. Tony said. Lila smiled. "You should tell him yes." Tony nodded. And for the first time in his life, he cried for a machine.